I stay out of things to a degree that people wouldn't believe, but I didn't speak to him. I thought the recommendation was ridiculous. I thought the whole prosecution was ridiculous. And I look at others that haven't been prosecuted, or I don't know where it is now. But when you see that, I thought it was an insult to our country, and it shouldn't happen. And we'll see what goes on there. But that was a horrible aberration. These are I guess the same Mueller people that put everybody through hell, and I think it's a disgrace. No, I have not been involved with it at all. I don't want to talk about that now. I think it was a disgraceful recommendation. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. What they've done to General Flynn, what they've done to others, and then the really guilty ones, people that have committed major crimes are getting away with it. I think it's a disgrace. See what happens. Go ahead, John.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we take a look at the latest new Q posts, and we have to ask the question, are we in the middle of the greatest military intelligence operation of our time? And is it going to result in more and more awakening of the public and exposing of the criminals who have been either complicit in covering up crimes of others or corrupt in their pursuit of destroying this country to enrich themselves? So we're going to take a look at that, plus a whole bunch of breaking news stories, so stick around. Hi, my name is Craig. Welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. For those of you who don't know, I always say thank you. If you've hit that subscribe button, please, if you have not, come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, then select all so you get notified as soon as all of these videos get posted. Today we're going to pick up, we have a bunch of Q posts to get into, and we're just going to jump right into it. We left off at Q post 3854, picking up at Q post 3855, and the first thing that Q wants us to look at is this post, and it is from this AZ Shop Our Girl, and they post this clip, which I'm going to play for you, which sounds like a lot of people have heard one thing or another, but it basically is President Trump being asked if he knows who Anonymous is, and we're going to talk about it, so watch this clip.
President, do you know who Anonymous is?
I don't want to say, but you'd be surprised. Would you be surprised? But I don't want to say.
So there you heard it. White House correspondent, I think John Roberts for Fox News, asked the question, do you know who Anonymous is? To which President Trump says, I don't want to say it, but you'd be surprised. And of course, what he's referring to in the question is John Roberts is asking about, does President Trump know who wrote the anonymous op-ed that was published by, I believe it was the New York Times. And here is the actual article. This is from September of 2018, where it says, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. I work for the president, but like-minded colleagues and I have vowed to thwart parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. Yeah, that's what we're up against. Now remember, this is back in 2018, and since then we've had other information come out anonymously, so I believe that this is what is being referred to. And who knows, it could be anyone. It could be Eric CIA, one of the Vindman brothers, another person in the NSC that we haven't heard of yet, or it could have been a higher ranking official. We're not sure, but I can tell you right now, if President Trump says we'd be surprised, then I'm sure we would all be very surprised by that. But Q's pointing to it. A lot of people thought that this was the Q, the big Q, asking President Trump about QAnon. Some people even originally heard it as John Roberts saying Q Anonymous when he just said anonymous, and it was obvious reference to the op-ed written in the New York Times. So all that aside, why is Q sharing it with us? I think it's pretty clear that Q wants us to remember that President Trump is right there, able to be asked the question at any given time. And even though they're willing to ask who the anonymous author is with regard to this op-ed that was written in the New York Times back in 2018, where they're vowing to basically create subterfuge by sabotaging the President of the United States agenda and his quote-unquote inclinations, whatever that means, that we are now seeing it come out open that these reporters, everyone has the opportunity, they're not doing it. So that's on them. So going into the next post here, Q gives us this picture of an older post from 2018, obviously talking about a patriot and a traitor, right? And this is all around the time, I believe, of this New York Times op-ed. Yeah, so the op-ed was in September of 2018, and this was in February of 2018. So this was before that person came out. So remember what Q says, too. We've laid a lot of traps, it seems, for a lot of these traitors who are the Obama holdovers and other deep staters who have been trying to sabotage President Trump's agenda from day one. And the traps are basically here. You have two choices. You can act in good faith, follow your oath, defend the Constitution, support the President of the United States, who's your commander-in-chief, who's your boss, or you can help the deep state, help the corrupt politicians cover up their crimes. It's really up to you, because as Q points out here, literally, here's the definitions that we have to remember. A patriot, a person who loves, supports, and defends his or her country and its interest with devotion. 2, a person who regards himself or herself as a defender, especially of individual rights, against presumed interference by the federal government. And then the traitor's definitions are a person who betrays another, a cause, or any trust, and 2, a person who commits treason by betraying his or her country. Q. So we're exposing these individuals who have been involved in these major, seemingly, like I said, the best way you could say it is sabotage operations, subterfuge. They're trying to actively help and aid our enemies, it seems, by derailing President Trump's entire administration's efforts and inclinations, whatever that means. But that aside, let's go back to what Q says here. Q says the lines are drawn, and then he gives us a stringer that I'm sure is not meant for us out there. I think that's meant for everyone else, or some other operators who have information, who are doing work. Trust me, there are some out there, I'm sure, right now who are doing this work, following this, and they know exactly what that means. But then it says, define renegade, Hussein, United States Secret Service code name, standard definition. Define evergreen, HRC, United States Secret Service code name, non-standard definition. Think depopulation. The silent war continues, Q. So, interesting little note, though. One of the annals was putting together, we've heard Q say the silent war continues, like, I think, 4 times now? And the first 2 times Q said it, which were on February 5th and 6th of 2020, it had 5 periods. Then in February 8th, it said it again with 4 periods at the end, or dots, whatever you want to call it. Then on the 12th, it had it with 3. And some anons pointed out, is this a countdown? 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 would be the next 2. But I'm just throwing it out there because people picked up on that pretty quickly. Now, you guys know the definition of a renegade, but we're going to go over it real quick. Renegade, a noun. It means a deserter from one faith, cause, or allegiance to. Here it is, renegade. The definition, a deserter from one faith, cause, or allegiance to another, an individual who rejects lawful or conventional behavior, also saying it deserted of faith, cause, or religion for a hostile one, having rejected tradition. And that's exactly what we had. President Obama chose the nickname. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. They choose their own nicknames. So he walked in and said, I'm renegade, knowing full well that the definition of renegade is somebody who loses their faith, cause, or allegiance to another, or deserts their faith. And like they betrayed the faith of the American people, they chose appropriate code names. Now, Q says standard definition applies there. Okay, the next one, define evergreen. And that's Hillary Clinton's code name from the United States Secret Service that she chose, presumably. Now, Q says non-standard definition, think depopulation. Well, the anons were very quick to find out exactly what that meant. And we're going to take a look at a few things here that kind of give us insight. First of all, somebody pointed out very quickly that Behold a Pale Horse, the book by William Cooper, which Q told us to look at previously, has several mentions of Evergreen here being a front, or a shell company, if you will, for the clowns in action. And doing a little research on it, you kind of really quickly figure out that this Evergreen company, which is basically, as outlined here, is Evergreen Air, and it's a clown front company, according to this article, that was basically working throughout the entire United States, and it's been around for quite some time, and they've been using it for things like geoengineering, and other things that apparently, according to this article, was exposed by some very sloppy individuals who were not able to thankfully keep this information to themselves, if this is true. And this is from 2012, so this is far before Q and everything else, so this wasn't just put up right now, right? But what's fascinating is that Q is telling us to look at it and to think depopulation. Now, if you go back to this William Cooper thing, what they talk about here is population control is the same part where you hear about Evergreen. And let me kind of explain what is being talked about here. They're talking about the way that these airplanes were used to basically spray chemicals over certain areas, including chemicals like malathion, and which was a nerve gas developed by Nazis during World War II, was being sprayed heavily on population centers in California, the excuse being that it was used to kill the Mediterranean fruit fly. And it ultimately ends up turning out that there was a lot more behind this. You know, if you think about it, certain areas of California now are heavily populated with oil and natural gas. And if you needed to remove people from land that they owned that you knew contained oil beneath it, which is one of the ways that you basically run your whole operation, I don't know how you would do that. And using the guise of population control. I mean, this is just me thinking out loud here. If you guys have better insights, please go down in the comments and share them below. But yeah, I'll leave links to all that if you want to read through it for yourself. And obviously, Q says the silent war continues. So the next thing that happened is we had these highly sophisticated state-level attacks versus 8kun by the fake news, and followed by fake news attacks via Q the next day. We talked about this on the channel here, where back on the 9th, they used, first of all, the New York Times wrote a major hit piece on Q, and it spurred all the other fake news organizations to write their hit pieces on Q. Probably the 4 a.m. talking point was, holy moly, we don't have any control anymore. We better start bashing Q. Because I'm thoroughly convinced at this point the Democrat fake news corporate cabal playbook has about 1 page in it, and we've basically figured it out. But anyway, there was this major attack on the website, and then all these fake news hit pieces, which even featured yours truly on the cover photo of the New York Times, and we talked about that before in one of the latest videos that was up on the channel. But Q says, is it coordinated? Ask yourself a simple question. Why? It's time to wake up. Q. So they have their disinformation operations working 24/7, 365, trying to get ahead of anything that is perceived to be a threat to them, including QAnon and the information being disseminated over on the 8kun boards. So they're going to do everything they can to not only gaslight Q followers, to create this straw man and try to put us all in the same category of, just like they did with people who voted for Trump. They demonized anyone who voted for President Trump, saying they're racist, obviously, and homophobic and misogynistic and bigots, the whole 9 yards. They start there, and then they go with Q, do the same thing. Then they go over to 8kun and they launch their, major DDoS attacks from who knows where, probably CrowdStrike in Ukraine, for all we know. Probably, yeah, that would be interesting. But this is what's happening. Q is pointing it out to us, and shout out to Code Monkey and Ron and everything they're doing over there to keep the boards up and going. I know it takes a lot of work. Now the next one here is a repost, but Q wants us to look at it. So what is it? I want to read this to you, and you guys are going to get it. So I'm just going to read it, and then we'll kind of move on. It says, what happens when 90% of the media is controlled, owned by 6 corporations? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy? What happens when the news simply becomes an extension arm of a political party? Fact becomes fiction. Fiction becomes fact. When does news become propaganda? Identity creation. How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? Majority of people more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name. Do people, human psyche, tend to follow the majority mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned? Mainstream is used for a reason. Dominate, trend, and opinion. If majority of people believe X, then X must be validated or true. why do and as I'm reading this, I'm like thinking, why do I start to think that like Tucker Carlson is one of these Q guys? It's a joke, obviously. We don't know who Q is, but this sounds like like he could use this on his show as opening monologue. Maybe he should. That's a good idea, Tucker. Here you go. That's free from me to you. Going on, it says, why do mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords and or catchphrases? Coordinated by who? Outside entity providing instructions? Do they count on the fact that people, human psyche, are more prone to believe something if heard over and over again by different trusted sources? Do echo chamber tactics provide validation, credibility to the topic point being discussed? Threat to intellectual freedom? Would control over of these institutions, organizations, allow for the mass control of population's viewpoint, re a desired topic, read again and digest? Would control over of these institutions, organizations allow for the mass control of population's viewpoint regarding a desired topic? Logical thinking. Why, after the election of 2016, did Democrats and media corporations jumpstart a coordinated and planned divisive blitz intended to create falsehoods regarding illegitimacy of election, character assassination of President Trump through sexism, racism, and every other ism? Pre-post 2016 election, why were violent mass terror organizations such as Antifa immediately created and funded? Why were these organizations tasked with immediate intimidation shutdown of any pro-POTUS rallies and or events? Why were marches immediately organized to counter and silence pro-POTUS rallies and or events? Why were marches immediately organized which divided people into sex, gender, race, ism? When you control the levers of news dissemination, you control the narrative. Control of the narrative equals power. When you are blind, what do you see? They want you divided. Divided by religion, divided by sex, divided by political affiliation, divided by class. When you are divided and angry and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible, controllers. Divided, you are weak. Divided, you pose no threat to their control. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and or stable livestock kept sheep. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable, groupthink collective, and have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism, rather than authority, tradition, revelation, and or dogma. This represents a clear and present danger of the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. Q. You know, when President Trump says that the fake news is the enemy of the people, right, he's not being dramatic. And what Q says here at the end is the most important part of this whole statement. This constitutes and represents a clear and present danger to the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. And that's the way we have to approach this. And unfortunately for the fake news who are in this corporate system that's being controlled from the top and used to basically brainwash people into following their crazed plan to control America through this manipulation, right? To control major populations in order to effectively create sheep. And when somebody comes along like President Trump who wants to free the American people, he wants to help free your mind, he wants to give you the opportunity to think for yourself. It's not a cult if you're being told to logically think for yourself and form your own opinions based off of objective facts that exist. It is a cult, however, when you put on masks and you march around the street with baseball bats and bicycle locks and you beat people over the head who disagree with you. That's more of a cult than people wearing a red hat and wanting freedom and believing in the Constitution, First, Second Amendment, and every other right that we have. Yeah, you tell me what the cult is, okay? That's all I'll say about that. Finally, here we have this ABC status, and this is going to be interesting. And, well, before we get into that, I almost missed this. Okay, so this was another thing that somebody picked up. The Define Renegade Hussein USS code name, right? Then it goes into here and it shows the U.S. Marine Corps dropped a post yesterday, that said 3rd and 12th. Okay, so just bear with me for a second. So they just were like, all right, well, let's look at cute post 312. It's the post that says Obama's Secret Service code name was Renegade, and asking us to define it and understand why it's relevant and understand about Bill and Hillary Clinton and how they're still under protection of the Secret Service. Is it protection or is it custody? I'll let you decide. But with that in mind, I like to think of it in those terms, and that's definitely something that is another thing to just remind ourselves that 18 U.S. Code 2381 on treason says that whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title but not less than $10,000 and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. I didn't say anything. I just read the code to you. But it does beg the question, the timeline for Hillary Clinton deciding to take her new gig in Northern Ireland, going back to this story from January where it talked about she would have a 5-year stint that she signed the deal for in Belfast, Northern Ireland. 5 years. Where does that look familiar? Where did that come from? Imprisoned not less than 5 years. Is that a deal that she made to get out of the country, or is she just trying to get away from the country, or is she just going to have, to talk about golf and grandkids and enjoy her time in Northern Ireland? I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to you guys. But with that being said, the next Q post that we're going to look at right here is the one we kind of lost in searching for the link. But this is what Q wants us to look at. So let's.
The president is claiming that rigging the rules is perfectly legitimate. He claims an absolute right to order the Justice Department to do anything he wants. And the president has, as his attorney general, an enabler, and that's a kind word, who actually supports this view. Does anyone think it's out of the question that President Trump might order the FBI to investigate Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, or anyone else without any evidence to support such an arbitrary violation of individual rights? Oh, I know, some far-right conspiratorial writer who has no credibility and who just makes things up, writes it, Fox News puts it on, Sean Hannity or someone talks about it, and then the president says investigate. That is third world behavior, not American behavior. That kind of behavior defiles that great flag that is standing above us. This is not ordinary stuff. I've never seen it before with any president, Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative.
So you have good old crying Chuck Schumer basically calling out QAnon without saying Q's name, talking about right-wing conspiratorial-minded people putting information out there that ends up on Fox News because they're not accredited. They're not a part of the fake news complex. They're not a part of the Mockingbird media, controlled media that they've been used to for so long. And President Trump having an investigation apparently into Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden constitute a violation of their rights as a citizen. Well, isn't that so funny? They just spent 3 years putting together a fake investigation against President Trump using unverified information where FBI agents lied to the FISA court to get illegal warrants to illegally tap President Trump's wires, as he says. And Chuck Schumer has the audacity to get on the floor of the Senate and basically accuse us of having the audacity, the nerve, to launch investigations into Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton when the evidence is stacking up by the mountain behind us, right? We're looking at all the evidence about Hunter Biden, about his relationships in Ukraine, about his relationships with China, about his father's policies during that time, about Secretary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation. How about all that funding that just disappeared when she lost the election? How about the millions and millions of dollars that were funneled into the Clinton Foundation from foreign actors who just so happen to benefit greatly from their relationship with the Clintons over the years of them being involved, whether it was through the original Clinton Foundation or the original Clinton administration all the way up to Obama and when she was Secretary of State. So you listen to these people and I understand where they're coming from, because they don't have any other choice. They have to either convince the American people that it's all political, it's all President Trump trying to get rid of his political enemies, or they're going to have to face the reality that we have evidence, it warrants an investigation, and a lot of these people are going to end up being indicted. And trust me, they know what's coming, so they're pretty worried. Anyway, now we got a few more stories to cover. Coronavirus makes a huge jump, right? Just the other day, reporting 15,000 cases after they're reporting like a few thousand every day. So it looks like they're starting to realize it's a big problem. You should see China right now. If you've seen any of the videos, the place is like a ghost town. They've shut down pretty much all the major commerce lanes, except for, I guess to get essentials in. And they've militarized a lot of areas, and they've quarantined a lot of people forcibly, whether by, quarantining them in their home or removing them to a quarantine facility. And, yeah, it's getting pretty bad there. So we got to keep an eye on that. Go get your supplies now, face masks, water, food, whatever, just to have on hand in case anything ever would happen. I mean, we always have to be prepared, right? Here, the story out now is talking about Roger Stone, one of the jurors, ran for Congress as a Democrat in 2012 and has a social media account, I guess, full of a bunch of anti-Trump, pro-Democrat propaganda, whatever. Okay? It's obvious this guy's being set up. President Trump said it. I think we all know at this point that Amy Berman Jackson, the judge, is corrupt in this case, complete partisan hack, and that the lawyers who are trying to prosecute Roger Stone, I mean, half of them, or most of them resigned, and then the few that are left want to basically put him in jail for 10 years almost for nothing. So they've I guess been reprimanded or whatever by the Department of Justice, and they've changed their sentencing recommendations because 9 years for lying when James Comey, John Brennan, and James Clapper all lied in front of Congress, bold-faced lies over and over again, whether it was in front of Congress where it could be considered perjury in some cases, or it was on TV to undermine national security. I don't know. You pick, right? But they want to go after Roger Stone for an inconsequential, basically an inconsequential lie that really had no impact on anything other than the fact that he was, saying that he may have a connection to WikiLeaks, whatever. Yeah, okay, and it didn't even turn out to be true. But put him in jail for 10 years. That's smart. Of course, now, President Trump did call out recently Tony Podesta, right? John Podesta's brother. And he said this: whatever happened to Hillary Clinton campaign manager Podesta's brother? Wasn't he caught, forced to leave his firm with big bad things to happen? Why did nothing ever happen to him? Only to the other side. So obviously, this is in response, I think, to what's happened with Tony Podesta. And this is pretty big when you think about what happens here. I think it was the same judge, Amy Berman Jackson, decided not to do anything with Tony Podesta, yet now trying to help to get the book thrown at Roger Stone. So it's a two-tier justice system, right? If you're a Democrat, the laws don't apply. But if you're a Republican, the laws apply doubly, right? So, you jaywalk, you're going to get 15 years in jail because you happen to be associated with the Trump campaign. That's where we're at right now. And correct me if I got anything wrong there. But President Trump also is accusing Bob Mueller of lying, and he's right, because Robert Mueller did get in front of Congress and lie in the fact that we know he had access to exculpatory evidence, which was withheld. But you know what? President Trump says it here. Even Bob Mueller lied to Congress. But he's not going to be arrested and put in jail for 10 years like Roger Stone. So you tell me, which is the worst crime, who deserves what, but I'm just telling you what's happening here and looking at the facts. So not to mention the fact what Q said earlier, pointing out the Harvard professor or head of the chemistry lab or department who was arrested with 2 Chinese nationals. Now they're investigating Harvard and Yale over foreign funding. Now remember what Yale and Harvard have. They have the pipeline for the elites, for the secret societies, Skull and Bones, all the rest of them. Remember the Harvard Law Review. All of these things are being investigated now, and these are what Q's been telling us are the institutions that were infiltrated. Think about what Jeffrey Epstein did in infiltrating these things. All of our higher education was being infiltrated, it seems. And we're going to expose it, so that's pretty much it. A few more things before we go. Watch these videos, share them on your social media, get the word out that way, because you know there's a content suppression algorithm that's in full force on YouTube. They're trying to suppress this content, keep it away from you, keep it away from the public, and then recommend that you watch the fake news so they can control you. As Q pointed out earlier, they're trying to manipulate you, brainwash you, and control the population. So that's what you have to fight by hitting the share button. Watch this video if you don't know what QAnon, the Great Awakening is, and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. Also, don't forget, be brave, download the Brave browser. It's free. There's a link in the description. You click this button, download it, install it, and run it on your computer. It's a better internet browser. It's better than Google Chrome, better than Windows Internet Explorer, better than Mozilla Firefox. It's going to make your internet experience that much better. I guarantee you're going to love it. Download it for free today, install it, run it on your computer, and I guarantee you're going to like it. And when you do that, they'll make a contribution to this channel, so it's a win-win. So definitely go check out the link to get that. Also, I'm on Twitter. You can find me over here. Links in the description at JustinFormedU. We can connect over here. This is JustinFormedNews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. You guys can come check this out as well. Links to everything, plus the latest videos from the channel. And I have a backup channel over here on BitChute, BitChute.com/JustinFormedTalk. Also, there's Patreon, Patreon.com. It's a crowdfunding website. You guys can support this channel by making a contribution over here at Patreon. It's a monthly donation. You can set it and forget it. And know you're helping create content on this channel. Thank you. You guys have basically kept the channel alive and all the demonetization that's come from YouTube. So you guys are what keep content coming out. And I'm sorry it's not been coming out regularly. Been just dealing with some issues, personal stuff, health stuff. So prayers is really what I need. I just need prayers more than anything else. I also have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. All of that helps out big time. Links to everything will be in the description. Now, before we go, I want to keep this a very simple but important segment we're going to do here. God's grace is greater. We do this at the end of every one of these episodes. And today I want to share a pretty simple verse, but it's powerful. This is out of the book of 1 Thessalonians, and it's in chapter 5, verses 16 through 22. And I want to share these words with you. Or actually, 14 through 22. It says, "And we exhort you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are lazy, comfort the discouraged, help the weak, be patient with everyone. See to it that no one repays evil for evil to anyone. But always pursue what is good for one another and for all. Rejoice always, pray constantly, give thanks in everything, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Don't stifle the Spirit, don't despise prophecies, but test all things. Hold on to what is good, and stay away from every form of evil." And that's it. You know, look, we all go through these times where, you know, our faith continually is being challenged every single day, because nothing in this world is, even the easiest or the simplest things are not easy at all, right? And we're always being challenged, and it's always a test of our faith, and we have to look at that and remember, what are we teaching ourselves? What are we teaching our family and friends and loved ones? And that's the message I want to share with you. Teach that to your friends, family, loved ones, everyone that you can get the word to. Tell them to rejoice always, pray constantly, give thanks in everything, for that is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Don't stifle the Spirit, don't despise the prophecies, but test all things, hold on to what is good, and stay away from every form of evil. So that's my prayer for all of you guys. I hope that you take that and share that with your family and friends and loved ones. And remember, don't take any day for granted. Don't take any second for granted, because God is going to give us these great blessings and these great gifts, but we have to take advantage of them every single day. So that's my message to you. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and hit it, punch it, tap it, headbutt it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.